Hello and welcome to this session about the Microsoft and Red Hat partnership. My name is James Reed. I'm a Principal Solution Architect at Red Hat and I've been covering the Microsoft partnership since November of 2015 when it was created. In this session, we're going to talk a little bit about that partnership, but focus on three key solutions from the Red Hat portfolio that work well and integrate with the Azure cloud. Those three solutions are Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Ansible Automation Platform, and Azure Red Hat OpenShift. Let me start off by talking about our customers though. Today, over 95% of Fortune 500 companies, of course, are using Microsoft Azure. But of those same Fortune 500 companies, more than 90% of them also rely on Red Hat. This means that Red Hat and Microsoft, of course, have got a shared customer base in the Fortune 500 space, but also at large enterprise, in middle market, and also SMB businesses as well. We see joint customers across every vertical, across every industry. And together, Red Hat and Microsoft have been working on new opportunities to enable the Red Hat solutions to work with Azure, as well as bring Microsoft technologies to Red Hat customers. So I like to say this is more than just a partnership on paper. This is because if you look at the timeline since when the partnership was created in November of 2015, we've delivered many offerings to our customers. Some of the highlights are that RHEL has been made available in the Azure Marketplace all the way back in 2016. And of course, nowadays, customers can move subscriptions that they've already purchased from Red Hat to Azure with the Bring Your Own Subscription program called Cloud Access. We extended that in 2017 with Microsoft porting SQL Server to Linux and then providing full support on top of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And nowadays, of course, with SQL Server 2019 as well. In 2019, we also announced Azure Red Hat OpenShift, initially with version 3, but of course nowadays with version 4. Microsoft Azure was the first cloud that Red Hat had a fully native service with it for any customer. In 2020, we announced Gold Images being available on Azure as well. JBoss EAP, Enterprise Application Platform from the middleware portfolio, was also made available in Azure App Service. And most recently, Ansible Automation Platform has also been available as a managed application on the Azure cloud. What this timeline shows is really close joint engineering between Red Hat and Microsoft for quite some time. This has really allowed customers to be successful if they're using Red Hat on Azure or indeed Microsoft solutions on top of Red Hat technology as well. But this partnership extends more than just a product and an engineering focus all the way up to executive leadership as well, where Red Hat CEO Matt Hicks and Satya Nadella regularly talk. They're often talking about doing what's best for our customers and what's in our customers' interests. May that be joint engineering, may that be sales alignment, alignment in support, or in other areas as well. Of course, nowadays, Microsoft is really serious about making open source successful, and they recognize Red Hat as a strong partner to bring open source into the enterprise and work with their customers. Now, there are many technologies in the Azure portfolio, in the Red Hat portfolio, and I simply don't have time to talk about every single solution. So what I'm going to do over the time remaining is talk about three key solutions that we see come up every single time on almost every customer journey. If you imagine your first journey into Azure, a lot of IT operations folks and engineers will spend time, will often say, we've moved lots of virtual machines onto Azure, but nothing standardized. We've got different distributions of Linux, maybe different operating systems. We've got different tooling for patching and monitoring and management across different teams. And from a lift and shift approach, that's often what you start off with and end up with. Often customers will engage Red Hat looking for infrastructure modernization and sometimes just infrastructure standardization as well. So we're going to talk in this presentation later on about how Red Hat Enterprise Linux can help modernize those operating systems and standardize on top of a supported, tried, tested Linux distribution that is RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Often the next step in the Azure journey, generally speaking, is saying that, okay, well, now we've standardized some of our infrastructure, we've maybe made some cost savings or simplified management. I'm still doing a lot of things manually. I'm paying engineers for patching, deploying software, for rolling out updates or whatever it might be. And so Red Hat and Microsoft frequently will then engage and talk about how we can help with automation. And the Ansible Automation Platform on Microsoft Azure is the quickest, simplest, fastest way to bring automation not just to the operating systems, but to applications as well. Now, when a lot of customers have moved past the infrastructure and application automation space, they then look at how they can modernize those applications as well. So our infrastructure is okay, but our applications can't keep up. Tooling is legacy. Do we need to be using AKS, Kubernetes? Do we need to be using containers? And how do we modernize some of those applications? So the third solution I want to talk about in this session today is Azure Red Hat OpenShift, the container-based application platform, fully native service running in Azure. So let's start on the first one, infrastructure modernization and standardizing on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So a lot of time customers will work with Red Hat and our experience about building a standardized operating environment. A standardized operating environment has management tools for scale, for managing Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and bring standardized operating environment for patching, monitoring, logging, and so on and so forth. There are tools that can support this as well. Satellite is a systems management tool for provisioning, for patching, for basic monitoring, and deploying software. Insights provides proactive remediation for issues with performance, issues with security, issues with availability, and many other things that a lot of administrators just don't see until they bring the solution in and turn it on in Linux. Ansible, of course, is the automation tool. Built into Red Hat Enterprise Linux via Ansible system roles, this can provide automation for daily and repetitive tasks around Linux, and we'll talk later on about how Ansible Automation Platform can bring automation to the whole enterprise. Now, if you've not used Red Hat Enterprise Linux much before, or even used it recently, then you may not be familiar with the last solution, which is the Hybrid Cloud Console, available of course for free for all customers using RHEL. The Hybrid Cloud Console connects to your Linux machines, be them running in Azure, on-premises, or indeed other environments. The Hybrid Cloud Console is the new management console from Red Hat, and that provides a single pane of glass view to all of your RHEL systems. And there's lots of tools in there that are too much to go into today, but there are things in there for cost management, for subscription management, for looking at availability of Linux, and many other options there as well. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux has become a de facto standard for the enterprise. For new applications, for containers, and new apps and developing new code, as well as existing applications, traditional databases, mission critical applications, or even maybe the legacy apps as well. Available in the Azure Marketplace, and again also available via bring your own subscription. Versions supported include all the way back to version 6 and 7, of course up to the later 8 and 9 as well could be deployed via the Azure Marketplace. So I've already mentioned a little bit about bring your own subscription. That's what Red Hat calls Cloud Access, allows customers to freely move those subscriptions to Azure at a rate that's suitable for them. This gives customers the true hybrid cloud flexibility, and if they choose to move back on premises or move subscriptions around, they can do this without having to worry about cost or additional procurement. There's also the option to do pay-as-you-go via the Azure Marketplace. But today, Red Hat has a 73% market share of the paid-for Linux market. Many customers trust Red Hat and have been doing so now for decades. But Linux and Red Hat Enterprise Linux is the modern operating system as well. We've brought in RHEL system roles, which is Ansible built into RHEL for managing day-to-day tasks, for deploying common bits of software, or for running just routine jobs within Linux as well. It's a tried, tested and trusted Linux distribution, available of course for running SAP workloads as well, for running SQL Server, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide, and of course for containers and OpenShift as well. This is also backed by integrated and a co-located support team, which means that Red Hat and Microsoft can jointly support you. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on as well. SQL Server, of course, now runs on RHEL and has done for many years. Now this is exciting because Microsoft decided and came to Red Hat that they wanted to port SQL Server to Linux and have it certified and supported on top of Red Hat. This was driven by Microsoft as part of our engineering relationship. And what this provides is choice for customers who maybe choose to run Linux within their application teams. It also provides them real power and flexibility if those teams then maybe want to move towards a containerized approach, because SQL Server is fully certified and supported, even running in a container nowadays as well. On physical machines, on virtual machines, this provides a lot of choice for customers. So if you wish to run SQL Server on top of RHEL, what you get is a flexible, high performance and security focused Linux distribution for running those modern database operations. This allows you to handle critical workloads for small machines all the way up to the very most demanding applications as well. So I've talked a little bit about infrastructure modernization and the value of standardizing on RHEL. I want to move forwards and talk about automation though, and that is of course Ansible. Now if you've not heard of Ansible before, I'd be quite surprised because it's become the de facto automation language. The reason it's so popular with users that picked up Ansible is because it's so simple, it's incredibly powerful, and it's agentless. Let me talk about that very briefly. You can look at Ansible playbook, Ansible code, and pretty much anyone can understand it. Even if you're not really if you're not a coder, or you're not a programmer, you're a system administrator, you're a network engineer, you're a mainframe administrator, or even a developer. Anyone can understand Ansible super easily because it's just written in a very simple YAML language with very plain syntax. This means the adoption curve for learning Ansible is so much quicker than any other automation language out there on the market. With that simplicity comes power. And I'll talk about this a little bit more on the next slide, but Ansible can talk to pretty much anything running in the enterprise. It's not just automation for Linux, but automation for Windows, for network devices, even for mainframes, but applications and everything else running out there in the enterprise. And it does all of this by being agentless. I don't have to install additional tools. I don't have to turn on agents running on Windows or Linux or anything like that. It uses SSH for devices that support it. You can use APIs for talking to Azure, and of course has got its own technology for talking to Windows machines as well. So in terms of that power, it can talk to pretty much everything in the enterprise. For applications, networking, different clouds, security and infrastructure, Ansible provides all those capabilities right out of the box. No additional subscriptions, no additional payment for talking to these different modules. You don't even need to install plugins. Again, most of this is all just provided out of the box with Ansible. So it means that you can focus on automation rather than having to build your own tool set. Now that's Ansible. That's focusing on the core language and the automation. Now Ansible Automation Platform is a different thing. That's what's shown here on the slide. Ansible Automation Platform is two things. It's a control plane and an execution plane. Simply, it takes that simplified, simple automation language and brings in all the features needed for the enterprise. Credential management, so being able to assign users or groups or developers specific permissions to be able to talk to different parts of the enterprise. It provides complex orchestration as well, so that you can have workflows that depend on one another. You can have error handling, You can have events that trigger and then kick off workflows or kick off playbooks as a result of responding to something happening within the enterprise. There's tight integration to Azure APIs and many other applications, such as ServiceNow. There's also the option to build your own self-service from the automation controller, user management and plugins to things like Azure Active Directory, and of course, to keep the security folks happy, auditing and logging for everything in the whole platform. That's the controller. The controller brings that centralized control for this automation. Now, the exciting thing about the execution plane means that the automation can extend outside of Azure and to different environments as well. So an execution environment could refer to a resource group in Azure, it could refer to a subscription, or an entire enterprise. But an execution environment could also refer to your on-premises data center or an edge location as well. So this means from your automation controller, you bring in the super simple Ansible playbooks. You can automate against anything, either if it's running in Azure or data centers or at the edge as well. And that's all via the automation mesh powered by the execution plane. Now, this full platform, Ansible Automation Platform, is now available as a managed application on the Azure Marketplace. This means that the Ansible Automation Platform runs in your cloud, in your Azure subscription, and comes fully integrated and installed after a 30-minute or so installation. That is fully supported by Red Hat. So it means we support the installation, we support the setup of the platform, but also support everything in terms of day 2 management of that platform as well. We check that the platform is patched, we check that it is healthy and is all working and all the components are working there too. And what this means is that your engineers can spend less time focusing on how the automation is running and how the platform is operating, and focus more time on just writing automation jobs and getting those running within the enterprise. Now, this whole solution also comes as a managed application integrated into Azure billing. Now, this is a huge advantage from a commercial standpoint. It means you can pay using your Azure Mac agreement if you're using one of those, or just via your standard Azure bill. And this is available on a pay-as-you-go basis as well. So as you scale up and maybe automate against more environments, more servers, obviously the cost goes with that. But equally, if you scale down and are doing less automation jobs, then the cost scales back down with that as well. So it's fully pay-as-you-go subscriptions, and again, fully integrated into Azure billing, meaning no separate procurement agreement is needed from Red Hat, and no special procurement cycle, let's say. Now, so far, I've talked about infrastructure modernization and bringing automation to that infrastructure and applications as well. The last solution I want to focus on is on application modernization. Often, the third thing that customers come talk to Red Hat about is, well, how do I modernize my applications? I've heard a lot about containers. I've heard a lot about Kubernetes. Where do I need to be focusing on here? What Red Hat has learned from working with thousands of customers over many years and having deep expertise in Kubernetes is that a lot of customers spend time adopting Kubernetes in the infrastructure and platform space. A lot of customers spend time building out compute machines for Kubernetes or setting up networking and storage. Now, some of that is made easier by services like AKS, but still, a lot of customers will have to build on top of that to build services and components they need to run applications in production. As customers are starting to modernize their applications using Kubernetes, they have to build out components on top of the operating system, have to build out databases that work with Kubernetes, have to build out logging and monitoring and service mesh and lots of other things that they just don't see in the first few days when they're first adopting Kubernetes. A lot of time, Red Hat engages with customers and they're spending many engineering hours in the infrastructure and platform space, and customers often have lost sight that the meaningful outcome that they're trying to get to is get applications delivered. Get applications delivered to the business. Be it a .NET application running on Linux, Java applications, Golang, or whatever it might be. Really, what's valuable to the business is getting the first application delivered on Kubernetes, and the second, and the 20th, and the 200th. Getting more and more applications delivered, and less time spent building the platform. Azure Red Hat OpenShift provides an application platform built on Kubernetes and built based on containers. What it provides is all the components needed in the infrastructure, platform, and developer space so that customers can focus on innovation and delivering applications far faster than just built on Kubernetes alone. This means that customers can massively accelerate that time to value, because remember that the business outcome, what the business really wants, is applications delivered faster and updates and new features on those applications delivered, and they don't really want to be spending time paying engineers for building their own Kubernetes-based application platform. A lot of the time when customers do build their own Kubernetes application platform, they're then locked into one environment. And if they have to retain applications on premises, then they have the whole complexity of then building that platform again for on-premises or maybe an edge situation as well. OpenShift is a container-based application platform that of course works in Azure, in private cloud, in other clouds, and of course on edge as well. Now this also means that customers can focus, can get better gains for operational efficiency as they're spending more time delivering applications and less time building their own application platform. Azure Red Hat OpenShift is supported by proactive management, proactive support, and constant monitoring of things like security and availability of the platform as well. Still, a lot of customers will ask us, OpenShift versus Kubernetes, which one should I be using? Now, the first response Red Hat would typically say is that OpenShift already is Kubernetes. It is a trusted enterprise Kubernetes distribution, but with lots and lots of value built on top. OpenShift includes Kubernetes, as well as the operator framework, CoreOS, Prometheus, Grafana, Istio, etcd, and many other technologies in there as well. OpenShift includes these technologies because a lot of customers don't realize they need them on day one. As they're first doing their first few applications built on Kubernetes, customers will then start building in logging, monitoring, and many other components there as well. So really, Red Hat makes them all available in tightly supported, integrated platform that is OpenShift. In this distribution, in this container-based application platform, there's hundreds of defect and performance fixes, validated integrations with Azure and many other ISVs as well as a certified container ecosystem from many of our ISVs. And we've been doing this with Kubernetes since day one. We've been a leading contributor, not just in Kubernetes, but all that supporting technology as well. So the question is less about OpenShift versus Kubernetes, it's more about, well, what do you need, Mr. Customer? Do you need an application platform or standalone Kubernetes to build the bits on top? In our experience, customers are looking for application platforms, and the value of OpenShift is in everything that we layer on top of Kubernetes. What this means is less cost to the business in building this themselves over time, less risk as well of losing developers or developers getting frustrated having to build their entire stack themselves. So we provide functionality in the platform space, such as service mesh, as well as things like function as a service or serverless, CI/CD pipelines, log management, cost management, and so on. For application services, we provide built-in support for languages and runtimes, such as Java, such as Golang, PHP, Python, Perl, .NET, and many other languages out there as well. We can pick up a Git repository or pick up a source control and automatically build that code into a container without a developer even having to do anything else. There's data services, such as common databases. I've already mentioned SQL Server, but whatever database is popular nowadays also runs in a container and can run on OpenShift. There's also database connectivity services, data analytics, AI and ML services built into OpenShift, again making it a simple platform for consuming data with your applications. Lastly, Kubernetes often is very developer unfriendly. Now there's some plugins, of course, for Visual Studio Code and that sort of thing who are working with Kubernetes. But when developers want to deploy things and get things up and running, they want monitoring working, logging working. They want to be able to connect to different environments and see how the application is performing. That's where OpenShift is really thinking about the developer. Even if it's providing workspaces inside of OpenShift or plugins to the IDE that work across the entire stack, OpenShift has got it all for the developer. OpenShift fundamentally is a container-based application platform. And what it means for our customers is, comparing to standalone Kubernetes, is far faster time to get applications delivered. Azure Red Hat OpenShift makes this even faster than self-managed OpenShift, so customers get applications delivered, not just the first, but the second, the 20th, the 100th, and keep that going in a repeatable pattern, not having to reinvent the wheel or reinvent the stack every time if they're just building on top of Kubernetes alone. What I want to end the presentation with is talking about some joint customer success. I've talked about 3 key solutions: Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Ansible Automation Platform, and Azure Red Hat OpenShift. And I want to show you a customer that's adopted all 3 technologies in a very similar pattern on Azure. That customer is Vodafone, based in New Zealand. And their challenge when they engaged with Red Hat and Microsoft as well was that they had a series of mergers and acquisitions, obviously in the telco space, adopting new technology or adopting different companies, absorbing them into Vodafone. What they found is that they had lots of different technical stacks across those acquisitions. So lots of them were fragmented with operations teams or technologies not talking to one another. And ultimately what that led to for their customers was a poor customer experience. They told us they had lots of legacy, lots of data center technology that needed to be modernized, and they're looking for a vendor to support them in their journey towards cloud native development and also multi-cloud too. So Vodafone is just one of those customers who has adopted all 3 of these solutions: Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Azure Red Hat OpenShift, and Ansible Automation Platform. In addition, they also reached out to our services teams when we help them in open innovation labs. That's hands-on, showing customers how Red Hat works with cloud native, introducing them into modern development practices. We also work with them with consulting and training as well, training developers and operations teams at scale on how to use these solutions. What that's meant for Vodafone is reduced operational costs, faster delivery for ongoing management, for patching, upgrades and automation. Now that's great for the engineering teams, great for the developers, but what does it mean for the business? A 25% reduced time to market. That is huge compared to their competition. That really puts them back in the game, gives them a real competitive advantage. So 25% reduced time to market. They've got a single common platform with Azure Red Hat OpenShift on Azure, and of course using OpenShift on-prem as well. Allows them to have a single development experience for their developers and operations teams alike. Now, I'd love you to spend some time watching this video reference we've made with Vodafone. Jaakko Sunderson, who's the head of IT engineering, as well as others, will talk about how Red Hat has engaged Vodafone and again how they've been successful with these technologies, indeed on Azure as well. Lastly, all these solutions I've talked about are available with integrated support. This means that a Red Hat customer can raise tickets either via the Azure support portal or via the Red Hat portal and have that jointly supported by Microsoft and Red Hat engineers. This means that you don't have to spend time talking to 2 different vendors, but you're talking to one logical support team, and we're there to fix problems for customers and ultimately make them successful rather than just throwing support tickets at one another. Lastly, these 3 solutions I've talked about today are also available under the Microsoft Azure Commitment program via Mac agreements. So it means that if you're looking to use any of these products in the Red Hat portfolio, but pay for them via Azure agreement, again, that is available today. And I know that's important for a lot of customers who've got that commitment to Azure consumption. Thank you very much for your time. In this session, we talked about 3 key solutions: RHEL, Ansible Automation Platform, and Azure Red Hat OpenShift. There's a link here on the slide, which I'm sure will be made available in chat, to learn a bit more about any of these solutions or learn about what Red Hat's doing at Ignite 2022. I believe there's a giveaway and a competition as well, so do click on that and have a browse around. And thank you again for your time in joining this session. Enjoy the rest of the event. Bye-bye.